Hey, good evening, Bulls fans. It's John McQuinney, joined as always by Matt Gritzmacher on our Olympic Rundown podcast. It's the first time we're back in about a month. Kind of took a break for Christmas and New Year's, seeing as wrestling was the only team that was really in action over the winter break, and now we're back, seeing as we have a little bit more to talk about between wrestling, track and field starting up, and the more of the Olympic sports are going to be starting up here in the next week or two. So with that, I'll hand it off to Matt. He has some fun stuff to talk about with track and field. They started their season. They started their season this past week at the Cornell Southern Tier Invite.
Yeah, I am realizing, as you say, it's been almost a month. One, it has. Two, that means we have a sneaky amount of wrestling to talk about, um, which is fine because we don't actually have that much to say for track and field. We just always start the show with whichever team has just started their season. Um, Cornell hosting a track and field invite, as it does in swimming earlier in the year. The Ivy League has all sorts of rules to make sure that athletics doesn't take too primary a position in the lives of their student body because they're the Ivy League. So this was an unscored meet, but it was at least the first chance we got to see UB this year. As kind of you might have seen with swimming in their first month before their break, and they'll pick back up again this coming weekend. It's going to take a bit for us to learn to see everybody get a couple times down at different events, and we start to see how things really shake out in the team. Kind of a loose season preview for track and field. I think the men are have been hurt in years past by saving their top athletes to make sure they make it to regionals and nationals rather than going for a MAC championship. I think that's going to continue again this year. But if you're just looking for that one great shiny beacon at the top, the name to follow is Mike Morgan, who I thought had a great chance, who did have a great chance, finished third in the indoor heptathlon last year in indoor national championships, and was a competitor in the decathlon in the outdoor championships, was in the running for kind of an all-American spot before he did not register a height in the pole vault, which is his best event in the decathlon. He's a senior now. Before Texas's Ryan Krauser was injured last year, I thought, and opened up the shot put field for John Jones to eventually win, I thought that Mike Morgan was UD's best chance for their first Division One national championship. So that chance is still alive. That's on the men's side. Really, in addition to the decathlon, Morgan is particularly good. As I said, his best event's the long jump or pole vault. But he's also is very good at the other jumps, at the high jump and the long jump, and that's really looking like it's going to be UB's strongest event, strongest discipline on the men's side this year. In addition to Morgan, Laurent Dewar was a top 5 jumper in the MAC last year, and they bring in on the high jump. They bring in Hassani Rathan, who was the top jumper in New York State last year as a high school student athlete. They've got a pair of Austins, Austin Ashby and Austin Price, who both are excellent at the long jump. I think the surprise really from the men's side against in this Cornell Southern Tier invite was in the triple jump and Kaishan Cathy, who won the event. He had all right distances last year, but really surprised me this time. I think men's jumps is really the one spot across all the different disciplines and options that either team has where I think UB can field two performers at each event who can score at the MAC championships, both indoors and outdoors. I don't think the throwers, for as good as Ryan Cribben and Devin Patterson are, they don't have the discus in them. They don't have a javelin guy. The distance guys, for as numerous as they are really loaded in kind of that 800, 1,000 mile range and aren't as strong when you get into the true distance. Speaking of which, if you like running better than field events, really the distance events to follow this year are Brian Crimmins and Tyler Sheving, who have traded off the 800-meter school record, I think, 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years, both indoors and outdoors. Um, in this particular meet, Sheving ran the 400, which is definitely a sprint event and not a distance event. And he won that, so that could be real interesting to see how that shakes out. Um, on the women's side, less exciting things in the distance throws and jumps, where UB just really didn't field a lot of depth at all. Um, Really, the biggest name to know on the women's side is Emma Susiak, who is also in her last year of eligibility. She actually only has indoor eligibility, but she's a contender for the MAC championship in the pentathlon for the women, and she's also a jumper as well. And Tyra Forbes, who was a freshman last year, set a UB school record in a sprint event or two, is also a real competent long jumper. Surprisingly, John, this is the last bit I have to say, unless you have anything. I was really pleasantly surprised with the sprint depth in both the men's and women's side. Um, on the men's side, UB had a pair of runners in the finals in both the 60 and the 60 hurdles, two more in the 200, and like I said, Tyler Sheving won the 400. A couple of those guys were freshmen. There was some real good distribution across all classes. It was just good. And in the only relay we saw, they took third with a group that I think is real solid for a 4x400 in Tyler Sheving, Darian Johnson, Trayvon Mask, and Mitch Moore. I think Josh Galley could be in the top level 4x4 sometime this year, but that's a group that I think is a real solid 4x4. I'd like to see them build their chemistry over the course of the year. On the women's side, they ran more of their sprinters in the 500 instead of the 400, which is silly. I think it's silly, but whatever. They did get a win in the 500 from Kyla Kenyon, who I haven't written much about last year, but she put together a strong season last year. Real big name to watch that I don't think people know on the women's side is Malaya White. She's only a sophomore. She's up there with Tyra Forbes and Kamaria Long, kind of in the all-time UB books. She was a finalist / top 8 in both the 60 and the 200. If it was a scored meet, she would have earned points. She would have been the top point earner among UB sprinters. Keep an eye on her. It's easy to look at Kamaria Long, who is the reigning MAC champion in the indoor 200, holds a couple school records. It's easy to look at Tyra Forbes, who holds a school record, who had a big freshman year. But Malaya White, I think, is a name that could really surprise a lot of people. Like I said, early for track and field. This wasn't even really a full meet. We've started to get some times down. Only a couple of people qualified for the MAC championships, which is to be expected. I think, like I said, the biggest and strongest group is going to be the men's jumps. Austin Ashby was 22 centimeters ahead of his indoor personal best last year. Last year's season best, I should say. He's already 20 centimeters ahead of that. If he's 20 centimeters above everything he does this year, he'll be an All-American. And we already have a former All-American in the long jump in Ryan Billion as well. So that could be a very, very strong group.
And speaking of guys that qualified for the MAC championships were Ryan Cribben and Devin Patterson in the shot put, who went 1-2 respectively there. And kind of interesting that I thought when looking through the results was that Ryan Billion competed in the shot put.
Yeah, I think they're scoping out his decathlon potential.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. It'd be interesting to see. He's an excellent sprinter. I wouldn't.
Yeah, the decathlon is mostly jumps and sprinting. There's 100, there's a 400 and a mile. There's a shot put and a javelin, and then there's a long jump, a high jump, and a pole vault. That gets us to 8. There must be a hurdles in there, whether it's 110 hurdles, and maybe a discus. If he can get the throws down, he's got everything else. Maybe not the pole vault, but if he can get the throws and be adequate at the throws and at least get some points in the pole vault, he's got everything else. If you follow the strength and training guys, you know that while he was injured last year, he spent a lot of time bulking up. And so I just wonder. I don't even know. It seems strange because he's a MAC championship level long jumper and sprinter already. But he did compete in the shot put, so there's something there.
Yeah, and I don't know, there's a little. While we say there's a lot of depth on the men's side, the depth isn't necessarily there in the jumps and throws on the women's side.
No. There are a number of throwers. They've got a real young group of throwers. Joanna Hallisey is a She might be a junior now. Like Miranda Doucher, Jess Dollywally, um, and somebody else. They're all sophomores. They've got 1 year in the system. Um, I honestly can't remember if it's Taylor Bates or Taylor Woods. One of them graduated and one didn't. I should be better prepared than I am for that. Um, it's there. The women's side doesn't quite have the same line of succession that the men's side has had, even though Garnham is coaching them both. Um, the best throwers in Western New York, I can think of two over the last 10 years that have gone to Kent State out of high school, whereas in Devin Patterson, in the incoming Sam Ray next year, on the men's side, UB pulls in the best throwers in Western New York, who happen to be some of the best throwers in the country for whatever reason, probably because Jim Garnham is around running camps, probably. But the women's side, just since Becky O'Brien hasn't had another powerhouse thrower like the men have been able to reel off one after another.
Okay.
I'm more disappointed in the lack of depth in the jumps on the women's side. And I was disappointed in they had more depth last year that graduated, and it performed poorly at both MAC championships. And I'm disappointed now there's not exactly many replacements there. We'll see. As a team, they set 9 school records last year. A lot of these times and distances were better than these people's season bests last season, so they're stepping out on a stronger foot. There's a lot of competition in the track and field season. The MAC championships indoor will sneak up pretty quickly, and then the outdoor season will last forever because Mike Morgan will go to nationals, and that goes all the way into early June, I should say. But in the meantime, there's pretty much something going on every weekend in track and field. So we'll have a lot more to talk about every week in this.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, it's still really early. This was kind of a very early, I don't know, you don't even want to say litmus test. It's just getting some times down and kind of seeing where everyone is, and can't really even make any season-long evaluations off of that because it's so early and there's still so many competitions to go.
Yeah. In a shot put competition, you never ever see someone throw their best distance on their first throw because they're just getting the distance down, and then they'll really go for it on throws 2 and 3, and as long as they advance on throws 4, 5, and 6. This whole meet was the first throw of a shot put competition, or the first jump of a pole vault run through. They just want to get on the board, get something down, and it'll definitely improve without a doubt. So
yeah, so I think
wrestling.
Let's move on to wrestling. So since the last time we talked, they had just finished a dual meet at Kent State. Since then, they've had 3 dual meets, and they've competed in a fairly major tournament. I don't know, Matt lost video.
Oh, did I really?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. I'll keep talking.
Okay, well, that just means that I'm scrolling through different things in my phone.
There you go.
Yeah, so when I go to different things in my phone, that's what's happening.
Okay,
you talk.
I'll ignore it then. So since then, they've had 3 dual meets, and they've competed in a fairly major tournament, the Midlands Championships. I guess we'll go back and start at the beginning and kind of work our way through what happened. First 2 dual meets were a tri-meet at Clarion with UB, Clarion, and Appalachian State. Buffalo hadn't wrestled Clarion. I think they may have wrestled them last year. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I know Appalachian State, they did wrestle last year, and at the time it was considered a fairly mild upset. App State was a solid team, kind of working toward. They had a few ranked guys, and they were kind of working their way towards being kind of breaking into the top 30 in the national rankings. This season, they return Uh, a couple fairly high-profile guys, one of them being Denzel Dejournette. He's been ranked in the top 10 really since the preseason polls, um, and he's at heavyweight. Another guy was Forrest. Oh god, I'm gonna butcher this. Forrest
You can't. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, but you cannot do worse than Rock Nudikai. Like, don't worry about it.
or
Uh,
Stutzman.
Stutzman, I can kind of understand. It's disrespectful. Um, but Nudikai, that was another level. Um,
I'll get to that in a few
yeah.
minutes. So
All
for those
right.
of you who don't know what we're talking about.
Oh no. John's internet connection is down. John is better equipped to talk wrestling than I am. When he comes back, I'll let him go on again. If I remember correctly, which I really should be better prepared. There he is. He's back. Maybe. No,
Oh,
not quite. Um, Appalachian State, if I remember, it was a really frustrating duel, John. Now you're back. It
yes.
was like super close, and the final team score was way lopsided.
It
But
wasn't. It wasn't that lopsided. The score was
okay,
19-12.
I'm
But
confusing it for Kent State then. That's what I was.
yes.
Go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
uh, they beat Clarion fairly handily. They would have beaten Clarion off of the three matches that I said: Tyler Rill, James Benjamin, and Kyle Akins winning by pin. That's 18 points right there. Clarion only had 12, so they win the match just based off of those three alone. Then against Appalachian State, um, UB started off
Didn't
well.
they wrestle Clarion first? Or
No,
no, I'm sorry.
it was
No,
App.
they wrestled App State first. That's what I meant to say anyway. Yeah.
Yes, they wrestled App State first. I'm just reading off the uh,
Oh, go ahead then.
list down here. Um, against App State, they started off well. Of the first one, two, three, four. They won four of the first six matches, which the meet started at 174 pounds. They got wins from Joe Ariola, James Benjamin, Kyle Akins, and Brian Lantry. So heading into the last four matches, the score was 12-7, and UB needed to win.
They needed to win one
Two.
and find one more point, whether it was a bonus point or to win two.
Yes,
Yeah,
they didn't win anything.
they didn't win anything.
They
That
didn't win anything,
was that was a terrible day.
which
Actually, it wasn't because we beat Clarion, but it was a terrible 20 minutes.
yeah, it was definitely frustrating. They kind of let it slip away. One thing I should mention though was at 157 and 149 pounds, we had a couple guys who, thanks to Clarion's, or not Clarion, excuse me, thanks to Appalachian State's Twitter, doing a really piss poor job of tweeting out what was actually going on or what guys were wrestling. So they would say, "Oh, um, John Smith from Appalachian State is taking on his guy from Buffalo." I was okay. That's not really helping us. Well, us as in UB fans. I'm sure Appalachian State fans probably didn't really care, but
No, they didn't.
for the sake of being detailed, um, we found out after the fact, once we finally got video for the Buffalo Clarion match, that Sean Peacock and true freshman Adrian Ferrari were wrestling at 149 and 157 pounds, respectively.
Yeah, and Ferrari looked awesome against Clarion for 2.5 minutes at least.
He did. He did.
But he's also a true freshman.
He is lightning quick, and
Yeah.
he's strong as a bull. He's not that great on the mat, especially on bottom. The guy from Clarion was a leg guy, and that right in the whistle, the Clarion guy got us like every single time. And Ferrari couldn't really do much to counter it.
Yeah,
But on his feet, dude was like a bull, and he
yeah.
was a takedown machine.
I mean, I thought, what was he up 10-2 after the first period? I thought he was going tech fall, and I think he only
Mhm.
ended up winning
Ten to
like
three.
11-3.
10 to 3.
Oh,
Yep.
he didn't even get a riding point. Bummer.
Or maybe it was 9 to 2, and he did. Oh no! He didn't get the riding point. I don't think because the Clarion guy wrote him out like a whole entire period.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
God, trying to think
Um,
back a month here.
anyway, the moral of the story is frustratingly close loss to App State, in part because of lineup shuffling. Nice solid win against Clarion, which is kind of to be expected.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
Clarion's they're a good program. I think that most of their guys now are younger, kind of in the same boat
mhm.
we are, but our team is young to the extreme, where on any given night we could have seven or eight guys that are underclassmen in the lineup.
Yeah.
Actually, which they did. They had eight guys that were underclassmen in the lineups for those two matches. Um, Even Clarion, fun fact, they produced an Olympic gold medalist in
Oh,
wrestling,
okay.
which is Kurt Angle. For those of you who ever watched WWE as a kid, he wrestled at Clarion, and I believe was a national champion.
Well, that's pretty solid. Um, did they do nothing from those duels that try meet until Midlands? They have to that whole
Yeah,
time
they were
off?
off. They were off for Christmas and then came back for the Midlands Championships. Um, for those of you who've paid attention to us and to the wrestling team, that last year they went to the Southern Scuffle, which is by and large considered the um, second toughest tournament you can go to outside the NCAA tournament. I mean, all the majority of the national title contenders were there, um, but the Midlands is kind of a close second in regards to toughness. I mean, there's still a lot of really difficult uh, programs that go. Um, and just comparing the Midlands results from this year to the Southern Scuffle results from last year, there was a huge improvement. Um, Even just the number of guys that actually won a match. I think, only three guys actually won a match at the Southern Scuffle last year, or may have only been two. I know at minimum Jason Estevez and Max Soria won at least one match. I think maybe Ryan Cromer maybe at 165.
Oh yeah, I
At,
kind of remember that
had he won
in
his
the
first match?
consolation.
No,
Oh, he
he
won his
won his
first.
first match and then lost the next two. But only those three guys won. Here, I mean, just running through it quick. Kyle Aikens pinned a kid from Eastern Michigan who I don't think he'll see him again. Um, we already wrestled. He wrestled a different guy when we had our dual meet with the MU Fusing. So I'm not sure who will be in the MAC tournament. I'm assuming it'll be the one that he saw in the dual meet. But he pinned him, and he also beat Johnny Jimenez from Wisconsin. Uh, Being a Big Ten guy was a fairly significant deal. Brian Langtry won three matches, beat a guy from Indiana, beat a guy from North Dakota State, and beat a guy from Rutgers. Now, the guy he beat from Rutgers, Scott Del Vecchio, former NCAA qualifier. Last season, I think he was ranked as high as maybe 15 in the nation. So that's a nice little feather in his cap. Tim Schaefer, I was really impressed with him. Uh, beat beat a kid from Northern Illinois who he's going to see again when we face them I think that's one of our maybe the second to last duel of the year is Northern Illinois. He'll see him again, beat him in overtime. Then he took the reigning Big 12 champion, Shane Tucker of Oklahoma, to double overtime and lost, which I thought was really impressive. And then Tyler Rill placed.
Tyler Rill.
Yes, he placed.
It is nice to have a healthy Tyler Rill with hamstring attached to the bone and functioning other parts of his body. He's a solid guy. A big upgrade from whatever UB was doing at 165 last year.
Yep. He won by injury default over Cooper Moore from Northern Iowa, who at the time was top 12 in the nation. Lost by 1 point to Pat Rhodes of Iowa, which that match came down to the wire, and when you do that against a guy from Iowa, that's pretty damn impressive.
Yep.
Then he avenged his loss to the guy from Kent State that he lost to in overtime. I know you remember how frustrating that match was to watch, that he lost.
I don't want to talk about it. I just don't want to talk about it.
But he came out
and everything about that freaking Kent State match.
But then he came out, won 7-1. Then he came out again, beat a guy from Rutgers 5-3.
Yeah.
And then with that win over the guy from Rutgers, he advanced on to day 2. Everyone else had lost 2 matches before then. Then in his first match, he went up against Clark. He was supposed to go up against Clark Glass of Oklahoma. Glass had to forfeit because he withdrew from the tournament due to injury. And then with that, Rill was guaranteed a place finish no matter what. Then the next match, he lost to a nationally ranked guy from Rider. And then in the 7th place match, he had a rematch with Rhodes from Iowa, and he lost that, ended up in 8th place. But still, in a bracket that featured, I think, either 10 or 11 nationally ranked wrestlers, Rill finished 8th. Not too bad.
Not too bad is right. Yeah, I am going to steal your thunder on this. John did the research on this point, but he's talked for long enough that I feel I need to interject. The last UB wrestler to place at Midlands was Mark Lewandowski. Not as far ago in the past as I thought when I went looking him up, but he was before John Jones. Really, he and Rob Golombek were the last era of guys to really have a shot at a national championship. Golombek was a shot putter on the track and field team. Lewandowski, obviously a wrestler. He was really, before this current run from the track and field team, the last guy to have a real shot at a national championship. He's a stud. Was a stud. Is a stud now. Rill's in that company.
There were actually 2 other guys that did place, John Martin Cannon and Jake Waste, at that same tournament. It wasn't just Lewandowski.
Yes, but Lewandowski is the name that I know. So,
dropped in.
Thank you for adding to that. I didn't hate the Missouri match. Spoiler alert, we lost to Missouri. That happens. It's going to happen again.
Missouri is currently riding, I think, it's either 29 or 34 dual meet undefeated streak. So
I'm pretty sure you told me 34 before.
Okay, so
for what it's worth.
I don't know where I got 29 from.
Yeah.
But they're riding, I think it's the nation's longest undefeated streak in dual meets. And wrestling in Columbia, it's outside of going to Penn State, I'd argue, is probably one of the toughest things to do.
Yeah.
And their last
especially when they really filled the building with gymnastics fans that day too.
Yeah, they had.
This was recent, by the way. to viewers, if we have any. This was Friday night. We finally caught up to the present day.
We have no viewers. At most, we did have two at one time, and that left.
Dude, woo! Tyler Rill has not entered the national rankings. That's a bummer.
Not yet. So Missouri is number 4 according to the NWCA coaches poll. Missouri is number 4. That's what I kept going off of. They're somewhere in the top 5, really, wherever you look. One of the best in the nation, and in their last dual meet out, they knocked off the reigning national champions, Ohio State. So there's that.
Yeah, so they won. We did get some points in a pin from Jake Gunning at the very end. It was a real smooth little. I think the other guy did as much to like hand himself to Gunning as Gunning did, but he took advantage of the opportunity and he didn't waste any time or any effort. He turned the advantage into a fall pretty quickly. Before that, though, until you be gotten to kind of the dicier substitution filled or going up against top 5 guys in kind of the last half, they did a great job. They were only down 15-0 at the half, which we say only because that means that Missouri got no bonus points by virtue of winning by exorbitantly large margins. Against a string of 5 guys, UB managed to at least stay within fighting distance. And in one case, man, Cole Cotton against Missouri.
Yeah, holy cow.
He deserves a lot better than he's gotten in 2 years against Missouri.
Yeah. Although, I don't know, did you actually see the match, or were you just...
That match, I was still watching basketball.
Okay, so I'll kind of set the scene.
Stall points and cautions. And he's been rough with the cautions all year that I've watched. He's always been jumping early. But you should summarize because our viewers don't know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So basically what happened was first period is winding. First period is kind of inactive. It was just the guys kind of feeling each other out, kind of seeing what was what. Then Cotton gets a takedown, and then he manages to get a spread eagle in, which the spread eagle is a very painful move. Won't really describe how they do it, but it's a leg move. Turns the guy he's wrestling, I should say, is the number 4 ranked guy in the nation. Then turns him over to his back, gets 4 back points, is up 6-2. Then a whole flurry of stuff happens in the third period.
Well, he's up 6-4 going into the third, so he must have gotten taken down late.
He got taken down a few times in the third. The issue was he got 2 points. He got knocked twice for stalling. Gave up a third point for caution. So when you're on the map and you're starting either in top or bottom, it's almost like a false start in football where you can't move or anything before the referee blows the whistle. First time, it's caution. Second time, caution. Third time, that's a point. And that happened. So there's 3 points. Cotton ended up losing 13-10. He gave up a takedown like right near the buzzer. It was just kind of a desperation. He was trying to get a takedown, and he ended up getting taken down. If he didn't give up the 3 points,
he wins.
He wouldn't have been in desperation mode to get to a takedown. He could have ridden the clock out. He could have won.
Yeah.
I was impressed. I mean,
have we mentioned that he was going up against the number 4 wrestler in the country in his weight class, and a former All-American? I don't think we did.
Oh yeah, I mentioned he was number 4. I didn't mention he was a former
All-American.
but he had him on his back. Like
Yeah.
I was so giddy. I was like, usually you don't get pins in with the move that he did, but I was like,
Hmm.
holy crap! If he pins him, the you the Missouri side would go completely silent. It would
Hmm.
be it would be the equivalent of the Khalil Mack uh, pick six on Braxton Miller. That's completely silenced that stadium. It would have been the
Yeah.
same type of deal on Missouri. Um, After half, it wasn't as pretty as the first half, if you want to
No.
that.
I will
Um,
say Tim Schafer got ragdolled in the first period and showed a pretty good amount of fight in the second and third. I
he
was
did.
pleasantly surprised with that.
Um, he's been doing a lot better as of late.
Yeah,
Between
I don't have anything bad to say about Tim Schafer this year, other than that I didn't know who he was before wrestling, and like if Alex Smythe doesn't break his jaw, I still wouldn't really know who he is. But I
mhm,
think he's improved, and I've never really been upset. I've never felt that he's been subpar. This one in particular, I was really pleased just with the change within the 7 minutes of wrestling. Those first 3 minutes were ugly. Like it felt like the Missouri guy was going for the most picturesque takedown he could get. Like
mhm.
it wasn't even like he was just better than Schaefer. He was. But then I looked up 4 minutes later and it was still only 3-1, and I said, okay, well, something's going right here.
And then he gave up a desperation takedown late because he was trying to get a takedown, and he gave up the riding time point, but not too bad. But
Yeah,
then our boy Tyler Rill wasn't in the lineup, which
yeah,
um
saddens me. Presumably his hamstrings are still attached to the bone,
I
so
so
so it's better than last year.
um I'm assuming it was probably more of a maintenance thing than
Yeah,
you know if it's don't wrestle Rill against Missouri, have him healthy for rest of the season or a match where it's more feasible to win,
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
That's fine. That's what I'm assuming happened. And
yeah,
Cotton finally being back, he's been in and out. Actually, this is the first we've seen him since the Kent State match.
yeah. That is true.
Um, so getting him back out there is really to knock the rust off of not having wrestled in a live match in nearly a month. But in seeing him come out and still wrestle as well as he did, that's very promising. It's just you tiptoe on a line, especially with his health. You know, especially with that knee. Knee injuries are always scare me. Um,
Yeah.
and
Um. Yeah.
Joey
Benji.
Leone and Benji, both guys
Uh,
were ranked number 2 in the nation.
I thought Areola looked good in spots. Um. Benji didn't stand a chance, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Um.
Jane Cox that he wrestled was a former national
Yeah.
champ.
Jaden Cox just kind of folds people in half. Like that's just I don't know. He just goes and kind of crunches them, and that's the whole story. Like, um, you said before the match that Missouri was weak at heavyweight, and obviously I mentioned at the top of this section that Jake Gunning got a pin for UB's only points. Um,
In the first period.
in the first period, even before the pin, Gunning looked like a stronger wrestler. He had a takedown that was very different from his. It was not his go-to move, which I was really glad to see.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was a straight up double leg
yeah.
takedown. Wasn't his snatch single that he usually goes
Hmm.
for.
It's not even the snatch single. Just however he gets that first leg. I guess they're always standing up, so it must be a snatch. It's that trip. He always goes for the trip once he gets the one leg. There's nothing else. He's
Yeah,
always hooking his right leg behind the other guy's left leg, and that's it.
that's usually the easiest way to finish a single leg takedown like that. You have
Hmm.
a few options. He does the treetop, so you lift the guy's leg up as high as you can.
Yeah,
Then you kick his other leg out from underneath him, and he goes down.
yeah,
Um, you can drive into him, and then wrap your arms around, grab the second leg, and change it into a double leg takedown. There's a million different ways to finish takedown. Uh,
hmm
but the treetop and trip that he does is probably the most effective because you're eliminating the one leg and then just kick the other leg out from underneath him, and he has nothing to brace himself with.
yeah.
Um, he
He got the
actually
pin.
right before he got the pin, there was a sequence before the pin where he got a takedown, but it went out of bounds, and
Okay.
it was basically on the same move that he used to get him to his back and pin him. Like, okay, just do that again, just in bounds. And the next
Yeah.
sequence he did, uh, he was going in for a takedown. The other guy, he really botched it twice in the sequence before and in the time he got pinned, just trying to escape and counter the
hmm
takedown. He did it poorly. Gunning knew what he was going for. He tried doing the exact same thing. Gunning planted him right to his back, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not the most disappointing 32-6 loss you'll ever see in wrestling. Um, they really pick up now. Um,
They
we've got
yeah.
a sneaky busy weekend in front of us in general. Um, track and field is going again uh, somewhere. They're in New York at a meet hosted by Albany. Men's tennis is starting their season. They'll be in Dartmouth. Swimming and diving has a dual meet against Niagara. That'll be if Niagara wins events, it'll only be because they're doing things like putting Megan Burns in like the 200 IM and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
like the equivalent of batting your entire batting lineup left-handed or something like that in baseball. And then the men will go up against Miami on Saturday, and then really the stars of the show, as far as I'm concerned, are wrestling again, aside from the basketball doubleheader, but we won't talk about that here. Men are going up against Columbia and Sacred Heart. Uh, Columbia was one of those close matches where UB wasn't quite the better team last year, but maybe if one guy had swung it, it's a real interesting match. Actually, I thought UB was the better team against Columbia.
It was the
Columbia
second
didn't impress me. Yeah.
it was the second half that plagued UB as it did that entire season. So from
Yeah.
165 on, this season we're much stronger in that 165 to 285
Yeah.
range. And that the Columbia match was
Uh-oh, John's gone again. And I don't have the
close.
ranking page up. Hold on, John. Wait until I can see you again. Um, I don't want that one. I want the other one. I was hoping to get the wrestling rankings up so that I could say who Columbia has in their corner before John went away. John is really totally gone. Yeah, last year against Columbia was one of those. Here we go. All you.
Ah, um, so I think they have a decent shot at ending the weekend 2-0, bringing their win total up to 8 on the year, which
That's pretty.
yeah, it's a fairly big improvement. So you got 8 wins, and then you really hit the meat of the MAC schedule.
Columbia's got a ranked guy at 157.
That would
Marcus Sheedle.
Scheidel, yep,
Scheidel. I don't
and
remember if we faced him last year, to be honest.
I think
Man,
so.
Clarion's got a couple ranked guys in. That surprises me.
Yeah, the rank. So will probably be
Zach
Connor.
Hernandez at 174. We'll see if McBride is healthy. That could be fun.
Yeah, McBride was a little banged up. He was coming
Yeah.
off a concussion, I believe, and he got nicked up in the Missouri match. So
Who's behind him? Weagle?
Austin Weagle. Yep. Which
Okay.
is not the end of the world.
Not the end of the world, but not
Which
the
is probably
greatest. And their heavyweight is ranked too, but Gunning can take that. That's not an issue. Um, sorry to cut you off.
and then
Their heavyweight.
the heavyweight is Garrett.
Yeah.
Yeah, Garrett Ryan.
Yeah.
Then I think at 149, Connor Sutton will be at 149, so that would be a good match between Cotton and Sutton. Sutton, actually, I know him from my days back when I wrestled. He was a Section 2 guy. For those of you who don't know New York sports, New York high school sports, Section 2 is like the Albany area where I'm from. He's from, oh God, where did he go to high school? I don't remember, but I know it was, he went to high school near me. I remember seeing his name around. Actually, he's a former New York State champ, so that would be probably one of the better matches to watch. And I think Angel Amenta at 133. I think that would be a rematch. Brian Lantry faced him at the New York State Championships and lost a really close one, in which I think that with Lantry having more kind of more experience in the season, I think Lantry could win the rematch. Then Sacred Heart, I don't know. I don't think they have anyone that's ranked. I don't know they do.
Oh, I wasn't looking.
Just the guy at 174 is ranked 32nd on Wrestling Report. So,
okay.
So we beat Sacred Heart last year fairly handily.
Okay, we did. I thought we had gone up against them last year.
Yeah, we did. I believe it was at the Northeast Duels.
That's right.
We beat them fairly handily. That we did 32-12. So I would expect a similar result. That would at least be my expectation there. Then the Columbia match, we lost 27-9. I think we can win. If we win, it would probably be in the same light as maybe the Maryland or the Lockhaven match from this year. It'll be a close one, like a 19-13, 17-16 type match.
It doesn't look like Columbia's going to have any, unless I'm waiting for a link. But they've got nothing next to the wrestling line for either of their. They're actually going up against Binghamton. There must be 4 teams there. On Saturday.
Well, we faced Binghamton at home in February.
Yeah, but the whole point I bring this up is I don't know if we're going to have anything to follow.
Yeah, we'll have to look. We'll have to dig through Twitter.
Yeah.
To follow that, because if there's no video or audio or anything, then
that will be cranky.
Yep.
Well, there will be Twitter if we raise enough ruckus about it. Man, I forgot that these Northeast schools have fencing, which is embarrassing that I would forget because my roommate in college was a fencer. I don't know. Sacred Heart actually is only wrestling Buffalo. So I don't, does that mean that, who is Binghamton wrestling? I'm so confused now. But I definitely, right now we don't have video or anything. So that's wonderful. Binghamton Wrestling just lost to Army.
Which Army is really good.
Yeah, they lost 19-15, so that's concerning. Because I hate Binghamton so much. Oh, and they beat Princeton too.
Yeah, Binghamton is wrestling Columbia.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So Sacred Heart is coming there I wonder if we just said we want 2 matches, find us someone. Which I'm cool with. That's awesome. Yeah. I think that's everything I have to say. Men's tennis, we'll have a season preview piece up sometime this week. They are not.
They're playing They're at Dartmouth.
They're at Dartmouth, but it's one of those situations where there's 3 schools. I think. Oh goodness gracious. Men's tennis.
Yes,
Uh,
the Buffalo
oh my
Buffalo
God.
University Buffaloes.
Don't even get me started on that. Maybe Dartmouth will get it right this year.
Yeah, the
Um,
Ivy League education hard at work.
yeah, they're going against Dartmouth and Bryant over the weekend. And these are dual matches now, whereas in the spring or in the fall they might be at an invitational and they might compete loosely against schools if it's not a bracket format. But these are now dual matches where we'll see three different single sets of doubles play go and best of three. Each pairing plays a set, and then six simultaneous singles matches, uh, three set matches. Uh, there's one collective duels point for the best of three among those three matchups, and then each singles match is a point. Um, Men's tennis isn't as loaded as they were last year. Last year, I was saying things like, I guaranteed last year they would return to the MAC championship, and they did. And then they finally won the MAC championship, so I felt pretty good about. I'm just going to toot my own horn. This year, Damien David and Sebastian Ionescu have graduated. Um, Pablo Alvarez is MAC Player of the Year level type player. He's very solid. Um, Amar Hromich was very good when he came to UB this time last year. He looked very, very good uh, in the fall. Sergio, Sergio's just clutch. He'll win matches when we need him to win matches, as he did in the MAC championship. And then freshman Ethan Natolo is real solid, real high end looking guy. Um, even those guys though aren't kind of the upper level. UB's they're gonna elite guys like Dave David and was, but um, UB's got that depth. Like there's Sergio, Noah Haidu Anderson, Hromich. I could see UB winning a lot of 4-3 matches, a lot of 4-2 matches this year, where they close out kind of three singles matches pretty quickly. Um, Supposedly, Nails Nickel went to the airport uh, in the last week to pick up someone, but they haven't added it to the roster yet, so I don't know who it is. We'll see. I think that this is a really interesting year for UB because they have four seniors. Um, it's not quite the kind of top level clear favorites that they have been, but they seem to have a knack for upsetting Western Michigan and Northern Illinois over and over and over again. And in the fall, the few chances we got to see them against other MAC competition, they came out the better end. Um, at a minimum, they're a threat. They're certainly a very credible threat to win a championship again this year. I think they're less of a favorite, but last year they barely snuck into the tournament because it took until the postseason for their top two singles guys to get going, and they really survived the season on the strength of those third through fifth singles, which is where I think they're especially strong this year. No other team in the MAC is going to be able to compete, bring out someone at fourth singles who can compete with Noah Haidu Anderson. No other team in the MAC is going to bring out someone at third singles who can compete with Natolo or Hromich. Much like the women who I'll talk about next week, the men have a lot of strength once you get past first and second singles. Even Akil Mehta can do a lot at fifth or sixth singles. Um, and those points are worth the same as Pablo Alvarez up top. So we'll see. We'll see kind of what we get out of this weekend. If we learned anything from last year, it's that all UB needs to do is finish in the top six, top four of the MAC, even if it takes a senior day win over Ball State and some help from Binghamton, and really slinking into the tournament. They can do it. It would be nice not to cut it so close this year.
Well, senior day this year is Binghamton.
God, really?
Yep.
I really don't like Binghamton.
Well, at the very least, we beat them last year in the MAC final, which is always nice.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk about it. We play them twice. Have they changed the MAC schedule this year? Oh, we play them. Yeah, we go against Western Michigan and Binghamton twice. That's terribly interesting. I wonder what's up with that.
We're closing in on an hour, so
Yeah,
we're making pretty
I
good
have
time.
I have nothing else to say.
You have nothing else to say?
I
Okay.
have nothing.
Um, let's see. This week in bowl, we kind of went through everything between we got men's tennis, wrestling, track and field again, and I believe that's it. In addition
Yeah.
to basketball, which um, I believe we're doing basketball podcast tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a women's week tomorrow though.
So we'll have that podcast tomorrow. Um, so as always, I'm John McQuinney, joined by Matt Gritzmacher from ubbullrun.com. This was our weekly Olympic rundown podcast where we talk about everything that's not basketball and not football. Uh, Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.